Surviving DayZ Solo is hard. You're up against teams of veteran players, hordes of the undead, and a cold, unforgiving world, all of which are threats to your life. Although it feels impossible and that all odds are against your survival, I'm here to give you some tips and ideas that may just improve your solo survival skills and keep you alive for the long haul. The first piece of advice I have for any lone wolf survivors out there is to take your time with everything that you do. There's no time-based objectives or restrictions. You have no need to sprint around from house to house or from town to town speed looting. Your only need is to stay alive, so what's the rush? Take the time to overlook points or areas of interest. Whether you scope in with a rifle, a pair of binoculars, or you just get up to a vantage point with no equipment, watching over the place you want to loot for a few minutes can help you spot other survivors, where the infected are, and allows you to spot specific buildings you may want to hit when planning your scavenging route. If you spot another survivor, maybe it helps you decide to skip the area, or maybe you're desperate and want to try to negotiate a trade, or, just take them out. Regardless, patience with your recon is crucial and could help prevent your demise. Then, it's even more important that when you're down in town making the loot run itself, that you remain low and go slow. The faster you move, the more visibly eye-grabbing you become. DayZ players that have been around a while look for fast movements, because whether it's a player, animal, or zombie moving with speed, it means that there's probably trouble, and it will grab their attention. Plus, the faster you move means the louder that you are for both survivors and infected to hear, hence my stay low and go slow tactic. The element of surprise and stealth as a solo looter is your best friend. Use it to the best of your ability and you'll be shocked at how much just toning down the pace of your play will change how long you survive. Next up, I advise you to stay organized and prepared. This sort of goes hand in hand with my low and slow mantra, as if you come organized and prepared with an idea or list of what you need during your looting run, it will help you get in and out of areas of interest while still maintaining a low profile. Personally, I don't advise staying in the same place for too long if you aren't looking for trouble, and I don't see it necessary to loot every single building in most towns and cities. The longer you're in one place, the higher the chances become that you'll bump into somebody else. So, looting with a goal of finding one or a few specific items in mind will help you increase your chances of getting out alive. Plus, always remember that most items like clothes, food, etc. can be found almost anywhere on the map. So you don't need to heavily rely on one loot run unless it's an emergency. Get what you came for, even if it isn't a bountiful amount, and go. Stay prepared can also mean to be ready for disaster at any moment. Have bandages and medical supplies on hand in case you get attacked and need to patch up. Have guns and melee weapons to protect you from danger. Think of emergency exits in mind to escape and reposition during firefights. The list goes on. Be ready for anything. Now, we've talked about staying stealthy and being prepared, but I think to fully take on both of those solo philosophies, you need to remember to pack light. Something a large majority of DayZ players make a habit of doing is hoarding excess amounts of essentials or looting every piece of junk they find because they think they might need it. Stop doing that. First off, the more loot you have on your character means the more obvious you are. Think of how big the field bags are and how easy they might be to spot. But maybe more importantly, more loot and gear also means more noise. And the more noise you make, the more likely it will be that you will attract zombies and other players that are nearby. At the same time, you'll also lose a lot of stamina by carrying lots of gear on you at one time. So not only are you more likely to be spotted and noticed by surrounding threats, but you also have less stamina on hand to make a move towards safety. All in all, it's a bad strategy to loot hoard in my opinion. So pack light. It is possible to still stay prepared when going with a light loadout. Just make sure you understand what you absolutely need and what you don't. For example, clean bandages are a pretty essential piece of medical equipment, but would you necessarily need to carry, let's say, 5 or 6 on you at one time? Let's say you have 5 bandages on you. That covers 20 bleeds. 1 bandage equals 4 cuts when full. But that takes up 10 slots of inventory space, and realistically you won't ever need to patch up 20 bleeds on the spot. If so, you'll likely bleed out before you get a chance to heal them. Maybe over the course of a long life, sure, 20 bleeds sounds sort of realistic. But you can also just swap out old, used bandages and constantly top off your medical supplies with every looting run. hoarding isn't necessary. Personally, I only carry 2 to 3 bandages max at one time to leave space for other medical supplies like morphine or codeine for serious injuries, EpiPens for quick repositioning, and vitamins for overall illness treatment. I cut out coming over prepared for one specific situation and instead prepare myself for a multitude of situations. Knowing what is essential and how much of said item you might actually need in any given circumstance are both very important concepts to learn and understand as a solo. Now, of course, there isn't just one recipe for success when it comes to this idea, but what I'm trying to advise against is hoarding, if nothing else. Something you can do to challenge yourself and learn which items you truly value over others is to do a few runs without a backpack or any extra inventory other than your jacket and pants. I've done this plenty, and it really forces you to run a tight ship and learn what items are truly essential. Lastly, as a solo, I believe that it's critical you always remember to use movement and positioning to your advantage, especially in PvP situations. We talked earlier about staying low and slow, but when you take on fights against other players, you need to know when to use that philosophy and when not to. If you're setting up an ambush against a duo that you feel you can take on with the gear that you have, low and slow is the perfect approach. Wait for the best opportunity to strike and take them out. But let's say you take a shot at a 4-man group from a high-rise building and you miss. They know where you are, and they're pushing towards you. What do you do there? Well, the moment you shoot and realize what's happening, the best thing to do is move. Your position is compromised, and you have an overwhelming force pushing your location, and you don't have the weaponry to hold a choke point. You need to relocate, ideally without being spotted. This is a very basic rule of pure sniping, but it can honestly be applied to any solo tactic in DayZ. Relocation and keeping your enemies guessing is sometimes the best way to pick them off slowly while minimizing risk to yourself. Everyone wants to be the hero and the ultra Chad who 4v1s a group with a hunting rifle. But in reality, most of us are just simply not that good at PvP. So why force the situation when it isn't necessary? Sometimes, sure, we don't have a choice if they close in quickly. But if we have an opportunity to escape or reposition, why not take it? Use quick decision making and movement to stay as incognito as possible in PvP. I mentioned earlier that I value an item like EpiPens for quick relocation. They give you 60 seconds of unlimited stamina and are the perfect tool for solos to flank or change positions quickly. So just to wrap things up, I want to share something that is very important to keep in mind as a solo. There's an unwritten rule in DayZ that there is always one more when it comes to fighting other players. This can mean another teammate to the group that you've already attacked, or a third party could be nearby. And this is why patience and recon, as mentioned earlier, is so crucial. Being able to have a good idea of how many you're up against is a massive factor to your decision-making processes. But even then, you could have not seen the 5th player of a 4-man group. Or there was just another group at a campfire in the woods, a kilometer away, and they heard your gunshots. Regardless of the situation, always stay patient and take your time before looting bodies of people that you've killed or people that you have found dead. They may have loot that would be super nice for you to take, but it isn't going anywhere. I personally like to change positions entirely and take a look at the crime scene from afar to evaluate whether it's safe or not. There have been many times where doing this allowed me to spot another player moving in or sitting watching the bodies, and I was able to take them out. But it's also led to me leaving and noticing someone else got there first and took off. It's always a risk in terms of leaving the loot there, but what truly matters is your survival. After all, that's what this entire video is supposed to be helping with, so I thought I'd leave you with this last tip. In the end, DayZ is difficult, but hopefully you can learn something from my style of solo gameplay and come out on the other end as a better overall solo survivor. If this was helpful at all, make sure to subscribe for more survival game tips and adventures. Take care, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.